You're trembling. Tell me the truth. Are you shaking because you fear me or because you resent me?
I'm shaking because I'm angry.
The first thing Mara Daniels noticed wasn't the view or the glass walls. It was the silence. Not the soft, sleepy quiet of Chicago before sunrise. This was the kind that presses against your ribs and whispers, "Run," before he decides what to do with you. But Mara couldn't run. Not with Jiho Han standing inches away, his hand resting lightly beneath her jaw. He wasn't squeezing. He wasn't forcing her still. He didn't need to. His presence alone felt like a locked door with no handle. Moonlight slid across the glass behind him, catching on the icy silver streaks in his dark hair. Winter in human form. Sharp lines, measured breath, eyes that held nothing warm. "You're trembling," he said quietly, tilting her chin up just enough to control where she looked. Not harsh, not gentle, just deliberate. "Tell me the truth," he murmured, voice too calm for the way her heart pounded. "Are you shaking because you fear me? Or because you resent me?" Mara's throat tightened. Her palms were damp. Her pulse was wild. But her voice came out steady. "I'm shaking because I'm angry." Something flickered across his expression. Interest, maybe. Curiosity. Whatever it was, it shifted the air between them. Before he could answer, his phone buzzed across the table. He stepped back, his hand dropping away. The contact broke. The air felt colder. "Go to your room," he said, already half-turned toward the window. "We'll discuss this when I return." Mara didn't move, because ever since she met this man, time had stopped listening to her. Jiho Han. Face unreadable, voice calm even when everything else was crashing. If he decided the sky was green, the sky would have to book an appointment to argue. She backed away slowly, refusing to let him see how badly her hands shook. "And before you decide he's just another rich, controlling man with power he never earned, you should know this." Mara Daniels did not walk willingly into this nightmare. To understand how she ended up here, trapped continents away from home, tied to a stranger whose name traveled in whispers, you have to go back. Back to the night everything normal in her life broke. For months earlier, the night Chicago stopped being home. She came back from a late political theory class, exhausted, fingers numb from the cold, thinking about leftover pasta and deadlines. She pushed open the apartment door and stopped. No music. Her mother always had something playing. Old school soul, R&B, anything that made the walls feel alive. Tonight, just silence. "Mara." Her father's voice sounded rough, scraped raw, like he'd aged 10 years in 1 hour. She stepped into the living room and froze. Two men sat on the couch like they'd ordered the furniture themselves. The first was tall, smooth-skinned, suit tailored to a life that did not involve this building. He smiled as if this was a social visit. "I'm Dorian Vale," he said. The second man stood by the window, arms loose at his sides, eyes taking in everything. Broad shoulders, quiet gaze. The kind of man you only notice when it's already too late. He didn't offer a name. "What's going on?" Mara asked, looking between her parents' pale faces. Her father swallowed. "Mara, we made a mistake." Dorian picked up a folder and tapped its corner against his knee. "Your parents owe my clients $280,000, he said smoothly. "A business loan. Poor timing. Poor results." Her knees almost gave out. "Dad, tell me he's lying." Tears filled her father's eyes. "I was trying to keep the catering business alive. I thought a loan would fix it." "You should have told me," she said, voice shaking. "We didn't want you to worry," her mother whispered. "We didn't want to drag you down with us." Dorian's polite smile somehow felt worse than shouting. "We're not here to assign blame. We're here to offer a solution." Mara narrowed her eyes. "What kind of solution?" "One that clears the debt immediately." He closed the folder with a soft snap. "My associate, Mr. Han, requires an American wife. Someone presentable, intelligent, adaptable. You qualify." A laugh tore out of her, sharp and unbelieving. No, you're out of your mind." "It's not madness," Dorian replied. "It's a contract. This is trafficking. she shot back. You can't just. We're offering your family a way out, he said, voice turning steel under silk. Decline. And we collect the debt directly from your parents. Her mother's breath hitched. Her father flinched. Mara understood. Fear was already carved into their faces. This wasn't a negotiation. It was a choice between two different kinds of destruction. If I say no, she whispered, you'll hurt them. Dorian didn't bother denying it. Her mother sobbed. Her father stared at the floor like it could swallow him. Mara closed her eyes. Her chest felt like it was caving in. I'll do it, she said quietly. Just leave them alone. Dorian's smile widened by a fraction. Wise choice. She didn't hug her parents when she left. If she touched them, she'd fall apart and never make it out the door. The flight to Seoul was long and numb. Dorian sat across the aisle, working on his laptop like he was escorting a colleague, not delivering a 20-year-old girl as payment. When she refused the meal, he didn't argue, just reminded her that Jiho expected her to arrive presentable. Everything tasted like cardboard anyway. Who is he, really? She asked at last. Dorian closed his laptop and studied her. Jiho Han, youngest heir of the Han Group. He built their global logistics network. Cold, disciplined, calculated, not familiar with the concept of failure. Mara looked down at her shaking hands. So that's who I'm being delivered to. Outside the window, Seoul eventually appeared. A spread of glittering lights, tall towers, beautiful streets. A city she'd once dreamed of visiting on her own terms. Instead, a black sedan waited on the tarmac and drove her straight to a private tower. At the very top, the elevator doors slid open into silence. Jiho Han stood there, as if he'd always known this exact moment would happen. Dark eyes, silver streaks in his hair, expression unreadable. He looked like a man who believed in numbers, leverage, and power, not people. Mara Daniels, he said, you're younger than expected. And you're colder than expected? She shot back before she could stop herself. His eyes narrowed just slightly. I value honesty, he said, but you will not address me like that in public. He nodded to the housekeeper. She'll show you your room. Your room, not ours. Mara followed the woman down the hall, feeling smaller with every step. Appearances begin tomorrow, Jiho said behind her. Rest. Appearances, not marriage. The bedroom was big enough for 4 people. She felt like an unwanted shadow in the middle of it. The door closed. Silence swallowed the room. Mara sat on the edge of the bed and finally broke. Not with loud sobs, just silent, shaking grief that soaked the sheets. Her new life was starting whether she wanted it or not. And she had no idea that everything she thought she knew about Jiho Han was barely the surface of something much darker. If this story already has you on edge, hit like and subscribe so you don't miss what comes next. Because the first real test of this marriage is about to explode. By the end of the second week, Mara had learned one thing. The tower wasn't a home. It was a glass cage. She almost never saw Jiho. He left before sunrise, came back long after midnight. His tie loosened, his expression sharper, colder, as if the outside world only carved him deeper. Mrs. Yamashita tracked her like a quiet warden. When she ate, when she sat in the living room, how long she stared at the skyline. The rule was simple. She did not leave the penthouse without permission. Ever. Some days, the city lights felt like they were taunting her. Look how close freedom is. Look how far you really are. They'd given her a tablet to stay informed. Most of it was business headlines she barely understood. Shipping routes, expansions, market dominance, but buried inside were the things that made her fingers go cold. Rumors. Stories of the Han family before they cleaned themselves up for the cameras. Stories about backroom deals. Threats dressed as negotiations. Stories about how Jiho became the heir nobody dared challenge. Every article said the same thing in different words. The brothers were impulsive, hot-tempered, reckless. Jiho wasn't. He was the one who thought before he struck. The one who could silence a room without raising his voice. The one people feared even more because he didn't have to shout. Mara couldn't decide if that made him better or much worse. 16 nights passed before she saw him anywhere except in quick hallway flashes. It was 3:14 a.m. when she woke to the creak of her door. She bolted upright, heart pounding, and saw him in the doorway, one hand on the frame, the other in his pocket, as if he'd been standing there watching her sleep for longer than she wanted to imagine. "You don't rest well," he said. Mara clutched the blanket tighter, not because she thought he'd hurt her, but because he was impossible to read. "Not exactly surprising," she muttered, "considering everything. I require only 3 hours of sleep," he said, stepping into the room with quiet, heavy confidence. "You need more." "I'm getting enough," she lied. "No," he said, "just that." He sat in the chair by her window, the one she'd never used because it didn't feel like it belonged to her. Moonlight outlined him, catching the silver in his hair. He looked carved, controlled, unreal. "For the next few weeks," he said, "you'll attend several public events with me. Investors, board members, officials. They will expect a certain image." Mara's stomach nodded. "What kind of image?" "A partner," he replied. "Composed, supportive, controlled." "A puppet," she whispered. Something moved behind his eyes. Not anger, not offense. Something she couldn't name. "You're not a puppet," he said at last. "You're here because your parents made unfortunate decisions." Heat shot up her chest. "They weren't unfortunate. They were desperate." "Desperation makes people weak," he said calmly. "Weakness invites danger." "That doesn't excuse this," she snapped. "No," he said quietly. "It doesn't." The honesty in that hit harder than any excuse would have. She stared at him. "Then why do you even want a wife?" He didn't flinch, didn't look away. "I need stability for negotiations with Western partners," he said. "Appearances matter. Marriage suggests reliability." "Reliability," she repeated, her voice sharp. "So that's all I am? A signal? A function," he said. "A role that ensures certain outcomes." The word stung, and he knew it. "But roles can change," he added. "Functions evolve. People adapt." It wasn't comforting. He stood, moving with that same precise control she was starting to recognize as dangerous. "Good night, Mara." It was almost out of her mouth before she could stop herself. "Are you going to hurt me?" He stopped in the doorway. When he spoke, his voice was softer than she'd ever heard it. "No," he said. "I don't harm people who can't defend themselves." Her breath hitched, not because of what he said, but because it didn't match what the articles said. Then he added, even quieter, "My father was not like that. I chose not to repeat him." He left before she could ask what his father had done. The next morning, the game changed. Jiho walked into the living room
You're
in a
trembling.
charcoal suit,
Tell me the truth.
adjusting
Are you
his
shaking because
cufflinks
you
like he
fear
was
me
gearing up
or
for a
because you
war
resent me?
only he could
I'm
see.
shaking because
"You'll
I'm
accompany
angry.
me tonight," he said. "Charity dinner. Tonight." Mara blinked. "Already? You'll be fine." "But what do I?" "I've arranged everything," he said, already turning away. "Mrs. Yamashita will prepare your attire. Be ready by 6. No discussion. No negotiation." By late afternoon, she stood in front of the mirror, staring at the woman looking back at her. Long sapphire dress that hugged all the places her hoodies usually hid. Soft, polished makeup. Hair styled like she belonged in this world. She didn't recognize herself. When she stepped out, Jiho was waiting. He stopped. His gaze moved from the hem of her dress up to her face, slow and assessing, then fixed somewhere above her shoulder, as if he refused to show whatever he'd just felt. "You look appropriate," he said. "Not beautiful. Not stunning. Appropriate. Thrilling," she muttered. He almost let out the ghost of a laugh. Or maybe she imagined it. They rode the elevator in silence. When the doors closed, his voice dropped lower. "Do not leave my side tonight." "Why?" she asked. "Because some people will see you before they understand you," he said. "And some will misjudge you before they respect you." "That sounds like a threat." "It's a warning," he replied. "There's a difference." The hotel was a storm of cameras and glitter and laughter. As soon as they stepped out of the car, flashes exploded. Jiho took her arm firmly, guiding her through the chaos. Not possessive, but protective enough to confuse her. He leaned in, his lips close to her ear. "Smile," he said. "They're watching." She forced a smile. And then the world snapped. The lights flickered, then cut out completely. One moment, blinding brightness. The next, solid black. Someone screamed. Then another. Mara froze. Jiho didn't. He grabbed her hand, grip steady and iron strong. "Listen to me," he said, voice low but sharp enough to slice through the panic. "When I move, you move." "Why?" "Not now," he snapped softly. "Stay right behind me." Glass shattered somewhere. People shouted in Korean. A voice boomed through a stolen microphone. "We're here for Han Jiho. Step forward, and no one else gets hurt." Mara's stomach dropped. This wasn't networking. This wasn't appearances. This was war. Jiho squeezed her hand once, a silent command, and whispered, "Run." Mara didn't think. She just ran. Jiho pulled her through the darkness so fast her feet barely stayed under her, cutting between panicking bodies like he'd practiced this exact scenario. Shadows leapt across the walls. Glass crunched under her heels. Voices collided in a mess of fear and orders. A hand grazed her shoulder. Jiho yanked her out of reach without looking back. They crashed through a side door into a narrow service hallway dimly lit by buzzing fluorescent lights. "Move," he said. "Don't stop." She didn't argue. Behind them, shouts echoed. Boots pounded the marble. Someone barked orders in rapid Korean that sounded like a countdown. "Who are they?" she gasped. "Enemies," he said. "Not mine. My family's." "And they're trying to kill you?" "Not tonight." His jaw clenched. "Tonight they're trying to take me." He didn't sound scared. He sounded certain. They burst into the emergency stairwell. The heavy door slammed behind them, the sound ringing in her bones. Mara stumbled. "Where are we going?" "Down," he replied. "Fast." They flew down the stairs, his grip steady, his pace controlled even while running for his life. When they hit the basement level, he shoved open another door. They spilled into a dim parking garage. A black motorcycle sat under a weak overhead light like it had been waiting just for this moment. Mara stared. "That's your plan. Get on," he ordered. "I've never." "Now, Mara." His eyes flashed with something she'd never seen in him before. Actual urgency. "If they catch us, they'll use you to hurt me. Get on." Her blood turned to ice. Not just because of the danger, because somewhere in that urgency was a twisted kind of fear for her. She climbed on. Her arms wrapped around his waist without permission. The engine roared to life. Tires screamed. They shot out of the garage so hard the wind stole her breath. The city blurred, neon streaks, flashing signs, angry horns swallowed by speed. Mara clung to him because there was nothing else to hold. Nothing solid, nothing certain. Jiho rode like someone who had spent his whole life outrunning trouble. Sharp turns, narrow alleys, side streets she'd never find on a map. They cut through one last back road before the traffic noise faded and the buildings grew quieter. Finally, he pulled into a small lot behind a nondescript apartment building. The engine died. Silence rushed back in, still buzzing with adrenaline. "Get off," he said. Her legs shook when she climbed down. He scanned the shadows, the rooftops, every window within sight before he seemed satisfied they weren't followed. Only then did he look at her. "What hurts?" he asked. "Everything," she whispered. "And nothing. I can't tell." He approached slowly, carefully, like she might shatter if he moved too fast. "You did well," he said. "You listened. That's the expectation, right?" she said bitterly. "Obey orders, stay alive." His jaw flexed. "You didn't obey me," he said. "You chose survival. There's a difference." Right now, the difference didn't feel important. He turned toward the back stairwell. "We'll stay here tonight." "What is this place?" "A safe house," he said. "One of many." Of course he had many. Inside, the apartment was painfully plain. Bare walls, basic furniture, No photos, nothing personal. A place built for emergencies, not memories. Mara sat on the edge of the bed, adrenaline crashing into exhaustion. Jiho stood in front of her, arms crossed, studying her like he could see more than she wanted him to. "You're shaking again," he said. "Of course I am," she snapped. "We were just almost shot or kidnapped or whatever that was." He didn't argue. Instead, he did something that stunned her. He knelt, actually knelt, and gently took her wrists, turning them over as if checking for damage she hadn't noticed yet. "You're safe," he said quietly. "You will not die because of my family's choices." "Your family?" Her laugh cracked. "This is your world. Your enemies. You dragged me into all of this." His grip tightened. Not painfully, but like he was holding on to something bigger than her skin. "And I'll drag you out," he said. "If anything happens to you, I'm the one who answers for it." Her breath caught, not at the threat, at the honesty. She'd thought he was made of ice and schedules and control. But right now, he looked haunted, human. "Why do you care?" she whispered. His eyes lifted slowly to hers. "Because I chose this life," he said. "You didn't. That matters." The words hung between them, heavier than the silence. "You shouldn't be touching me," she said quietly. He let go immediately, as if burned. Understood. He stood, walls slamming back into place around his expression. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then he said, "Rest. We'll return to the tower when my men confirm it's secure." "And if they're waiting?" she asked. "Then I'll remove them," he answered. She didn't ask if that meant negotiations or blood. She wasn't ready to know. Later, as she lay on the unfamiliar bed, she listened to Jiho move quietly around the apartment, checking windows, doors, exits. Not the monster from the articles. Not the cold stranger from the elevator. Something more dangerous than both. A man who terrified her and had just saved her life. And she had no idea what that shift meant for everything that would come next. Morning slipped into the safe house like it was sneaking in. Mara didn't remember closing her eyes. Only the crash from wired panic into heavy sleep. When she woke, Jiho was still by the window, posture straight, eyes sharp, like he'd spent the night listening to the city breathe. He didn't look at her right away. He seemed to be listening for something only he could hear. Finally, he spoke. "It's clear. We can go." Mara pushed herself up, rubbing the grit from her eyes. "Your men checked. They neutralized the immediate threat." Neutralized. She didn't ask if that meant scared off, arrested, or buried. With Jiho, every word came with layers. He'd swapped his suit for a plain black shirt and dark slacks. Simple. Forgettable. The kind of outfit you wouldn't look at twice, which was exactly the point. "You'll walk behind me," he said. "Someone still after us?" she asked. "Uncertainty is enough reason to be careful," he replied. They left through the back stairwell, the metal door groaning in protest. Outside, the morning air was cool and bright. The city going about its usual business like no one had tried to abduct an heir the night before. A car rolled up, not Kenta, not any driver she recognized. Jiho opened the rear door for her. Not a gentleman gesture, just control. The ride back to the tower was silent, tension sitting between them like a third passenger. Security lined the private entrance when they arrived. Guards bowed as Jiho stepped out, but their eyes wouldn't stay steady. Everyone in this world knew what an attack on a Han meant. Power cracks, bloodlines questioned, war. Inside, the penthouse looked exactly the same as it had before the chaos. Polished surfaces, perfect lines, not even a pillow out of place, as if nothing had happened. A woman in a navy suit was already waiting in the living room, tablet in hand, hair pulled back tight enough to warn you she had no time for nonsense. "Mr. Han," she said, bowing. "The board is demanding an internal inquiry. They want answers about last night's incident." "They'll get them when I decide," Jiho said. "Your brothers have requested a family meeting as well." Later, she hesitated. "Your father called." The temperature in the room dropped even though the thermostat didn't move. "He'll call again," Jiho said. "I'm busy," She bowed and left. Mara watched him, feeling something shift under his calm. Not fear, but a sharper kind of calculation. He finally turned toward her. "There's something you need to understand," he said. "About what?" "My family." She stayed quiet. "You were pulled into this because they created enemies," he said. "Those enemies believe that if they break me, they weaken the others. They're wrong, but that won't stop them trying again." Her stomach clenched. "So the danger isn't over." "No," he said, "but it can be managed." "How?" she pushed. He met her eyes. "By being prepared," he said simply. The way he said it sent a chill down her spine. Not because he was threatening her, because he sounded like someone who'd been preparing his entire life. Jiho stepped a little closer, stopping at a careful distance, like he was learning where the invisible lines were. "I should have told you earlier," he said. "My family is complicated." "That word is doing a lot of work," she muttered. He didn't argue. "My father built the empire," he said. "Not cleanly, not legally. My brothers followed him down that path. I didn't." "You still benefited from it," she said. He didn't look away. "Yes. That's why I've spent the last 8 years separating what I build from everything they've ever touched," he went on. "But they don't see it as separation. They see it as betrayal." "So last night was a message." His jaw tightened. "Not to me, to them. And because you were with me, you became part of that message." Her pulse quickened. "So I'm in danger because I'm tied to you." "Yes." "Then untie me," she snapped. "Send me back. Let me go home." He was quiet for several seconds, long enough for her to feel every beat of her own heart. When he finally spoke, his voice wasn't cold. "If I send you away now," he said, "the same people who went after us last night will go after your family. You're safer near me than far from me." The truth in it stung. Mara looked away, staring at the city through the glass. "So I'm trapped." "No," he said. "You're protected." She let out a dry laugh. "Those sound exactly the same from where I'm standing." He didn't correct her, didn't try to convince her. He just stood there, hands behind his back, eyes on the skyline like he was already 3 moves ahead of everyone else. "Why did you pull me out?" she asked. "Last night. You could have escaped alone." "They weren't after me." His eyes flicked toward her. A tiny shift, but she caught it. "It was not an option," he said. "That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting right now." Silence stretched between them, heavy and fragile. Her phone buzzed. She looked down and felt her stomach drop. "Mom." She hadn't spoken to her parents since the night she left Phoenix. Anger, fear, and mistrust had built a wall around that number. Jiho glanced at the screen, then back at her. "Answer it. I'll give you privacy." He walked down the hall. Mara's hand shook as she swiped to accept. "Mija." Her mother's voice trembled. Are you okay?" Mara exhaled slowly. "I'm alive." Her mother sobbed. "We heard something happened in Japan. There were sirens on the news and—" "Mom," Mara said gently. "I'm okay. I promise." "We love you," her mother whispered. "We think about you every day." "I know," Mara said softly. But she didn't say "I forgive you." Not yet. When the call ended, she turned and found Jiho exactly where she'd left him. Not looming, not hovering, just there. "Everything all right?" he asked. "Not really," she said. "But nothing in my life is all right now." For a second, it looked like he wanted to say something that wasn't strategy or logistics. Then he nodded once instead. "We'll improve security," he said. "I'll do everything possible to make sure last night never happens again." "You can't promise that," she said. "No," he admitted. "But I can try." And the strange thing? She believed him. She still didn't trust him, didn't like him, didn't understand him. But she believed he meant every word. What she couldn't see, not yet, was the storm already gathering on the other side of those glass walls. A storm coming from Jiho's enemies and from inside his own family. And the hardest part of this nightmare hadn't even started. The next week felt like walking over ice that might crack with every step. Every morning, Jiho met with his security team behind closed doors. Every afternoon, messages from his brothers flooded in, demanding a family discussion. Every evening, another report arrived about unrest inside the Han Empire. And through all of it, Mara lived in the penthouse like a witness trapped above a war she barely understood. But she wasn't clueless. She knew the attack hadn't been random. She knew pressure around Jiho was tightening. On the 8th day, everything snapped. It started with raised voices coming from the office down the hall. She didn't mean to eavesdrop. The door was already cracked, and his brother's anger was loud enough to spill out. "You've gone soft," a man snarled. "Ever since you brought that American girl here, you've changed. You think the board doesn't see it." "That has nothing to do with this," Jiho replied, voice icy. "Oh, but it does," the man shot back. "You split half the company into your own divisions. You made moves without us. The people who should fear us are starting to think we're fractured." "So they attacked," Jiho said, not shaken, just stating facts. "They attacked," the brother repeated, "because you made us look weak, and you invited enemies into our city," Jiho snapped. "Don't lecture me about weakness when you can't control your own operations." Something slammed, a fist on the desk. Mara knew she should walk away. She didn't. "You think you're above us," the brother hissed. "You think because you run the clean side you're better. But you're still a Han, built from the same dirt. Don't forget that." Jiho's voice dropped so low she almost didn't hear it. "I haven't forgotten," he said. "I'm trying to bury it." Silence. Thick. Hostile. Then, colder. "You want out? Fine," the brother said. "But don't expect protection. And don't expect us to clean up the fallout from your decisions." Footsteps thundered closer. Mara jumped back as a tall man stormed out, shoulders broad, features disturbingly similar to Jiho's. He walked past her without a glance. Definitely a brother. Jiho emerged moments later, face sharp as if carved from glass. "You heard," he said. Not a question. Mara swallowed. "I didn't mean." "It's fine." He brushed past her, heading for the balcony. She hesitated, then followed. The city sprawled beneath them, lights, motion, endless life. She'd never felt smaller. "My family built everything on threats and violence," Jiho said quietly, still looking at the skyline. "I refused to keep doing that. I built something separate, legitimate. To them, that makes me disloyal." "Are you?" she asked softly. "No," he said. "I'm just different. They don't tolerate different." The wind tugged at the silver in his hair. "Last night's attack was a test," he continued. "Someone wanted to see how far I'd go, what I'd sacrifice." Mara's voice was barely above a whisper. "And what did you sacrifice?" He hesitated. "You," he said. "You were almost collateral." She folded her arms, trying to hold herself together. "None of this is my world. It became your world the second they took you from your home," he said. "And I allowed it." She didn't have an answer for that. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "Mara Daniels, this is Agent Ryland with the Federal Transnational Crimes Unit. We need to discuss your entry into Japan. Please respond." Her stomach dropped. She showed the screen to Jiho. His expression hardened instantly. "It's starting," he said. "What is?" He drew in a slow breath, as if preparing to lift something heavy. "An international task force has been investigating my brothers for months," he said. "Recently, they started examining my marriage contract." Mara's blood ran cold. "Why?" she whispered. "Because if they link your situation to trafficking networks," he said, "they'll use you as evidence." "And you?" she asked. "I'll be classified as a trafficker." The word cut straight through her. "But you didn't." "Intent doesn't matter," he interrupted. "Circumstance does." He gestured around them. "And these circumstances look exactly like what they're hunting." This wasn't just about danger anymore. It was about charges. Courts. Prison. For both of them. "What do we do?" she asked, voice thin. You tell the truth, he said. All of it. About what? How you ended up on that plane. The debt. Dorian Vale. The threats. Phoenix. The contract. The flight. The attack. Her jaw clenched. And you? I'll accept whatever consequences come, he said calmly. But I won't let them twist your story. Her throat tightened. Why are you doing this? She asked. For the first time since we met, he said. You deserve a choice. She stared at him, feeling everything and nothing at once. I'll tell them everything, she said finally. But I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it for me. Jiho nodded once, slow and respectful. They'll contact you again tomorrow. And until then? She asked. We prepare. For what? She pushed. For the truth, he said. And the storm that comes after. The city lights flickered on the glass. Mara gripped the railing, breathing in cold air, letting the weight of what was coming settle on her shoulders. Silence wrapped around them again. Not the dangerous kind, the honest kind, the kind that comes right before your whole life flips. And as the screen fades, if this story has you thinking deeper, feeling the tension build, hit like and subscribe. Because once the agents arrive, nothing about Mara and Jiho's world will ever go back to what it was. The agents didn't wait for tomorrow. They arrived the next morning. 2 men in dark suits and a woman with a tablet stepped into the penthouse foyer like they had a right to be there. Jiho's security tried to block them at the elevator until the woman flipped open a badge. Federal Transnational Crimes Unit, she said. We need to speak with Ms. Daniels. Now. Mara's heart pounded as she stepped into view. Jiho stood beside her. Not touching, not shielding, but close enough that every agent kept him in sight. Ms. Daniels, the lead agent said. I'm Agent Ryland. We're investigating several international marriage trafficking networks. Your entry into Japan raised flags. What kind of flags? She asked, forcing her voice not to shake. You arrived on a private flight with no personal funds, no documented housing or education plan, Ryland listed. And your marriage occurred within 72 hours of arrival. Mara swallowed. She knew how that sounded. Can we talk alone? She asked. Ryland nodded. Of course. Jiho stepped aside immediately, hands loose at his sides, expression unreadable. They went into the study. The door shut behind them with a soft click that felt much louder. Ryland sat opposite her. The woman with the tablet stood nearby. The second male agent stayed by the door. Ms. Daniels, Ryland said gently. We're not here to punish you. We're here to protect victims. But we can only do that if you're completely honest. Mara's chest tightened. Then I'll give you everything, she said. No edits. So she did. Phoenix, her parents' debt, Dorian's threats, the contract, the flight, the first days in the penthouse, the charity attack. She poured out the story she'd been carrying in pieces. The agents didn't interrupt. They just listened. When she finished, the room felt heavier. Ryland leaned back. What you've described qualifies as forced marriage under federal law, he said quietly. It fits multiple trafficking indicators. She'd known. Hearing it out loud still knocked the air out of her. Your parents were coerced? He asked. Yes. And you were coerced into this arrangement as payment? Yes. And Mr. Han received you, knowing the nature of that arrangement? She hesitated, just for a heartbeat, then nodded. Yes. Ryland's jaw tightened. Not at her, but at what that answer meant. The other agent spoke. Do you feel unsafe here? Mara paused. Her answer wasn't simple. I don't feel unsafe, she said slowly. But that doesn't mean what happened was okay. The woman with the tablet typed rapidly. Ryland's gaze softened. Ms. Daniels, would you be willing to testify? Her blood ran cold. Against who? Against the traffickers, he said. Against the network that moved you. Against Dorian Vale. And possibly, he held her eyes, against the Han family. And Jiho? She whispered. He may face charges as well, Ryland said. Before she could respond, the door opened. Jiho stood there calm, but with a sharpened edge in his eyes. "Is the interview finished?" he asked. Rylan nodded. "For now. We'll follow up." The agents left. Silence settled like dust. Mara sat on the edge of the desk, trying to convince her lungs to work. Jiho closed the door. For once, he didn't come closer. Didn't try to read her. He just stood there, hands at his sides. "What did you tell them?" he asked quietly. "The truth," she said. He nodded once, slowly, like he'd expected it, like it still hurt. "They'll move on my brothers soon," he said. "Maybe on me." "You knew this was coming," she said. "Yes. And you didn't warn me?" "I didn't want to influence what you said," he replied. "It had to be yours." Her voice cracked. "You knew they'd see me as a victim." "You were one," he said. "You still are. Surviving doesn't erase that." The words hit like a punch. Not because they were cruel, because he didn't flinch while saying them. "What happens now?" she whispered. He took a long breath, as if bracing himself. "Now they'll question you again. They'll question me. They'll go through every part of my family's history. And your words will shape everything." "They asked if I'd testify," she said. "I know. And if I do, you help them take down the people who put you on that plane. And you," he finally looked at her. "If you testify honestly," he said, "I'll face the fallout. I won't ask you to protect me." Silence stretched between them, full of everything she didn't know how to say. She didn't know if she trusted him, didn't know if she hated him, didn't know if he was a villain trying to atone or a good man caught in a bad system. But she knew this. For the first time, her voice had power. Jiho stepped back, giving her more space than he ever had. "Whatever you decide," he said quietly. "I won't interfere." He turned toward the door. As his hand touched the handle, she heard him murmur. Not for her, just into the air. "I hope you choose what's right for you, even if it destroys me." The door clicked shut, and Mara realized the next decision she made wouldn't just rewrite her life. It would rewrite his. The investigation moved faster than anyone expected. 3 days after her first interview, Jiho's brothers were taken in for questioning. The footage hit every major news channel in Japan and the US. Reporters swarmed the streets outside Han Group headquarters, shouting questions, inventing answers. Inside the penthouse, tension wrapped around everything. Mara barely slept. Jiho didn't look like he slept at all. He stopped leaving the apartment except for meetings with his lawyers. Sometimes she caught him standing still, staring at nothing. Not panicking, just calculating. Like a man who'd always known this cliff was coming. On the 4th day, 2 black sedans pulled up to the private entrance. Jiho saw them on the security feed before anyone knocked. "They're here for me," he said. Her throat tightened. "To arrest you?" "No," he said. "To question me. Arrest might come later. But they might." "Yes." The single word hit like a stone. She walked with him to the foyer. Not touching. Just not able to stay behind. When the officers stepped out of the elevator, Jiho didn't resist. "I'll cooperate fully," he said. "Let's go." He glanced at Mara once. Brief, unreadable, then turned away. The apartment felt too quiet after the door shut behind him. Hours crawled. Mara paced until her legs ached, checking the clock, the window, the front door, over and over. Every buzz from the intercom jolted her. When it finally rang, her heart nearly stopped. "Ms. Daniels," the building's security chief. "Mr. Han has returned." She rushed to the entrance. Jiho stepped inside, shoulders tense, tie gone, sleeves rolled like he'd been fighting with words instead of fists. "They're recommending charges," he said. Her stomach flipped. "Against who?" "My brothers," he said. "Dorian Vale, the organization behind him." He exhaled sharply. "And me." Her mouth went dry. "What are they saying?" "That there's substantial evidence tying me to trafficking, based on your contract and travel records," he said. "They're pushing for a plea." Cold spread through her chest. "A plea for what?" "1 count of coercion through financial manipulation," he said. "Could be worse. Could be better. And if you don't take it?" Then they go for harsher charges. Silence. What do you want to do? She asked. I want this over, he said. I want the record to show the truth. I want my family's operations torn apart. I want Dorian Vale in a cell. And I want you free from any tie to the Han name. His words hit her like sudden wind on a rooftop. Steady, strong, unavoidable. So you're going to accept? She asked. His voice lowered. If it keeps you from being dragged through this as collateral, yes. Someone knocked. Mrs. Yamashita entered, bowing. Mr. Han, she said. They're asking for Ms. Daniels. They want a second statement. Immediately, Mara nodded. I'll go. She walked past Jiho. They'll ask about me, he said behind her. If I threatened you, controlled you, manipulated you. I know. Tell the truth, he said. All of it. No matter what it does to me. She turned, studying the cracks in his composure. You're not scared of prison? She asked. I'm scared of the wrong story being written, he answered. Fear of anything else is irrelevant. She didn't have a response for that. Downstairs, the agents were waiting. The second interview was sharper. Did Mr. Han ever restrain you physically? No. Did he threaten you? No. Did he prevent you from going home? Yes, but not with force. He believed I'd be targeted. Did you trust him? That one stopped her. She thought of Phoenix, of the flight, of the glass tower, of that night in the safe house, of the balcony, of the way he'd said I allowed it. I didn't trust him at first, she said slowly. I don't know what I feel now, but he never lied about the danger. The agents traded looks. When it was finally over, her head pounded. Back at the penthouse, she expected to find Jiho pacing. Instead, he was on the balcony railing, sitting, hands relaxed on either side, looking over the city. Not recklessly, just tired. They're finalizing the plea, he said without turning. My lawyers think the judge will accept. 6 months minimum. Maybe a year. Mara's breath caught. And you're willing to do it? It's necessary, he said. The investigation will go public. My family will face theirs. And this ends. Not for you, she whispered. For me too, he said quietly. He slid off the railing and faced her. I was part of the chain that brought you here, he said. Maybe not the one that grabbed your wrist. But I didn't break it. I walked along with it. Now I'll accept the weight of that. Her eyes stung. You didn't make my nightmare, she said. But you were inside it. Yes. And you're the one ending it. Yes. What happens now? She asked. They'll take me in within the week, he said. You'll get counselors' legal protection. And you'll be officially released from any tie to this family. Free. The word felt fragile. Jiho stepped back, putting space between them. I'm not asking for forgiveness, he said. Or understanding. Just accuracy. I can give you that, she said. He nodded once. But both of them knew. The hardest part wouldn't be the hearings or the headlines. It would be what came after. For both of them. The week before sentencing felt unreal. Lawyers cycled in and out of the penthouse like they lived there. Phones rang day and night. News anchors dissected every rumor about the Han family. Mara spent most of her time in the quietest corners she could find, trying to make sense of the storm she'd been sucked into, and the fallout that was about to hit. She didn't talk much. Neither did Jiho. They moved around each other like people crossing the same bridge from opposite ends, careful not to step too hard in case it shattered. On the morning of the plea hearing, he stepped out of his office in a simple black suit. No flashy tie, no watch, just clean lines and calm. Mara, he said, it's time. She nodded, fingers digging into the strap of her bag. She wasn't sure why she'd brought it. Maybe she needed to hold something that still felt like hers. Security escorted them to the private garage. One unmarked car waited. The drive was silent. At the courthouse, cameras swung toward them instantly. Microphones thrust forward. Questions flew. She kept her head down. Jiho didn't react at all. Inside, the courtroom smelled like paper and polish and endings. Reporters whispered behind ropes. Lawyers shuffled through files. Officers stood by the doors, faces blank. Mara sat in the back row. Jiho stood beside his lawyers, back straight, hands at his sides. When the judge entered, the room fell quiet. Charges were read: trafficking involvement, financial coercion, assisting an international criminal network. Each word felt like a rock dropped into the air. When the judge asked for his plea, Jiho didn't hesitate. "Guilty," he said. The air went still. The judge read through the agreement, turning pages with steady fingers. Finally, she looked up. "For your cooperation," she said, "and your testimony against other involved parties, this court accepts the plea deal." Mara's hands clenched around the edge of the bench. "Mr. Han," the judge continued, "you are sentenced to 12 months in federal custody, with eligibility for supervised release after 6 months based on conduct." A stunned hush washed through the room. 1 year, maybe 6 months. Not nothing, but not forever. "You are also required to submit proof of complete separation from all illegal operations connected to the Han family," the judge added. "Failure to comply will result in further charges." Jiho nodded. Understood. The gavel hit. Officers approached. He didn't fight when they took his wrists. Didn't look at the cameras. Didn't say a word. Just listened. Before they led him away, Mara stood. He didn't turn to face her. Couldn't, not with protocol and officers between them. But he spoke quietly, just loud enough for her to hear. "Your testimony will protect people you'll never meet," he said. "That matters more than anything that happens to me." She swallowed. "I just told the truth. And that," he said, "was everything." He didn't look back as they took him. Mara watched until the door closed behind him with a heavy, final thud. It sounded like the end of something, and the fragile beginning of something else. News alerts exploded before she even left the building. Heir to Han Group sentenced. American student's testimony key in international case. Han Empire under full investigation. 2 government advocates rode back with her to the penthouse. When she walked inside, the silence felt different. Not like a cage. Not like danger. Just unfamiliar. Her room looked the same. She wasn't the girl dragged into a contract anymore. She wasn't someone's debt. She was a witness, a survivor, person with a say. She opened the laptop the advocates had given her. Secure, monitored, boring gray. A new message glowed. "We have your statement on record. You did the right thing. Stay available for follow-up. Someone will check on you daily." She closed it. The penthouse felt too large for one person. But for the first time, the size felt like possibility. Not prison. 6 months wasn't long. But it was long enough for the world to rearrange itself again. She didn't know what would happen when Jiho got out. Didn't know if they'd ever sit in the same room again. But she knew this. Whatever came next, it would be her choice. The months after Jiho's sentencing were strangely quiet. Not gentle. Not easy. But quiet. Government advocates checked in. Counselors came once a week. Court updates arrived through her liaison. Outside, the world kept moving. The Han brothers were indicted. Dorian Vale's network got ripped apart. Other victims stepped forward. Mara's testimony became a key piece of a case stretching across countries. But her name stayed redacted. Her face stayed off the screen. For once, she wasn't a headline. She was a person rebuilding. She enrolled in online classes, trying to pick up the degree life had ripped away. She cooked small meals. She slept without flinching at every sound in the hallway. Piece by piece, she reclaimed parts of herself she hadn't realized were still there. And every few days, her thoughts wandered to a life far from glass walls, to a prison cell where Jiho Han was now living stripped of power and tailored suits. Not because she missed him, because their story was unfinished. Nobody walks through something like this and comes out untouched. At 6 months, her liaison called before sunrise. "Mara, I have an update." She already knew what he was going to say. "Mr. Han is being released today on supervised terms," he said. He completed counseling and met all behavioral conditions. Her stomach twisted. What does that mean for me? She asked. You're not legally connected anymore, he said. You can leave Japan whenever you like. Where he goes next is his choice. Where you go is yours. There it was again. Free. Still heavy. Still complicated. Still real. She got dressed, not for court, not for show. Just enough to feel like she could stand steady if the ground shifted again. When the doorbell rang, she froze. A security guard stood outside. And behind him, Jiho. He looked different. Hair shorter. Posture less razor-edged. Face calmer, like someone who'd been forced to sit with his own reflection for a long time. He didn't cross the threshold. Mara, he said, may I come in? She hesitated, not from fear, but from earned caution. Yes, she said. You can. He stepped inside slowly, taking in the space like it belonged to someone else now. Maybe it did. He stopped at a respectful distance. No looming. No assuming. I won't stay long, he said. I'm not here to pull you back into anything. All right, she said. I came to give you this. He held out a small envelope, plain and sealed. Court-certified documentation. It confirms my complete separation from every illegal tie connected to my family. You don't owe me reading it. I just wanted you to have proof the chain is broken. She took it, fingers steady. Thank you. You deserve to see it with your own eyes, he said. Silence stretched between them, not loaded, not hostile, just full. You're free to go home, he said, whenever you want. No one from my side will follow you. I know, she said. And whatever life you build next, he added quietly, I hope it gives you back more than this ever took. She looked at him for a long moment. You kept your word, she said, even when you didn't have to. That was the only thing I still had control over, he replied. Another silence. Will you stay in Japan? She asked. For now, he said. There's rebuilding to do. Legally. Personally. I won't step back into my family's shadow again. And if they try to drag you in? They won't, he said. Not after what came out in court. She let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. He turned toward the door, then hesitated. There's one more thing, he said. He sounded uncertain. I want to apologize, he said. Not to erase anything. Not to ask you for anything. Just because it's true. Mara stayed quiet. I was part of the system that brought you here, he said. I didn't grab you from your home, but I accepted the terms. I didn't stop the machine already set in motion. I regret that, and I accept whatever judgment you have for me. Her throat tightened, not because it fixed anything, but because he didn't run from the words. Thank you for saying it, she said softly. It doesn't make everything okay, but it's honest. He nodded once, like he'd expected nothing more. He opened the door. Goodbye, Mara, he said. She didn't answer right away. Part of her wanted to hold the moment long enough to fully understand it. Part of her wanted to close the book and never reopen it. Goodbye, Jiho, she said at last. He left. The door closed. The silence that followed wasn't heavy or dangerous. It was the kind that comes when a story finally stops bleeding long enough for healing to start. Mara stood in the middle of the penthouse, the same place where she'd once felt like property, and realized something she hadn't let herself believe. She wasn't broken. She wasn't stolen. She wasn't defined by what was done to her. She was standing. She was choosing. She was rebuilding. On her terms. She walked to the window and looked out at the city. No fear. No leash. Just possibility. Her future was finally hers. And this time, she intended to write every chapter herself. If this story hit you, made you feel something, or made you think about power and choice differently, tap like and subscribe. There are more stories coming, and you don't want to miss the next one.